Hello and welcome back to On the Workbench. Today we're here talking about garage door openers and the law. A little bit of an odd combination. We're talking about the Chamberlain Group versus Ryobi or Tektronix or One World Industries and their One Plus garage door opener. Or as you might also refer, or I thought of it as the epic garage door patent soap opera, because it seems to remind me a lot of daytime TV soap operas. So let's get started with it. Unfortunately, here we got to start with a little quick disclaimer. This is not legal advice. I'm not a lawyer. If you need or desire actual legal advice, please consult a licensed attorney in your area. Your state may be able to provide assistance in helping you locate one. This is for journalistic and educational purposes only. I'm a tool guy, not a lawyer. All information obtained and that I'm presenting to you here was obtained from public court records. If you know where to look, public court records are easily accessible, sometimes for a small fee, but all in the public domain. So what happened? And so I think maybe a derivative question is, if you walk into your local Home Depot, why do you not find the 2 horsepower Ryobi GDO or garage door opener unit in stores? It was there a couple years ago, and then all of a sudden it up and disappeared. A number of them went on some clearance sales, but still clearly on the Home Depot website, it disappeared. Will it come back? I know I bought one of these earlier this year, and before that I was tracking this for a while, trying to figure out what was going on, and I think I finally have the answer, and now I can bring you even more information on this saga. So let's start with some background, just to kind of set up the story here. So the Ryobi battery backup garage door opener model GDO 200, originally they only had one model, was announced April 1st, 2016. Now I remember looking at those press releases on that day, and the first thought that went through my mind was, is this an April Fool's joke? And I've got a feeling a lot of other people wondered the same thing, because the Ryobi system was and as far as I'm concerned is very revolutionary. That there's the accessories that you can get, whether it's parking assistant lights, fans, security cameras, a lithium ion backup battery. It's a belt drive system, not that a belt drive is novel. You can get pull-down power cords, pull-down hose reels, a Bluetooth speaker. It's got an app on your phone. And this was just really cutting edge at the time, and I believe it still is, because there's nothing else that really rivals this as a system. And so what was originally, at least I thought of as being a April Fool's joke, which was a brilliant idea, they actually really did bring to market. And kind of, as far as I'm concerned, if I was the Chamberlain Group, which is one of the leading manufacturers of garage door openers, they definitely got outflanked, not from another garage door competitor, but from a power tool competitor, which I'm sure they didn't see coming. Maybe they did, but it'd be easy to surmise that they got flanked without even realizing it until it was too late. And so just a couple quick little tidbits here in terms of Ryobi's ownership. I know we see this opener in the Ryobi green color, but Ryobi has a parent company, One World Technologies, which they kind of go by interchangeably. And so in the legal documents that I've uncovered, a lot of times it refers to it as One World Technologies / Ryobi in various combinations. And that's owned by Tektronix Industries, which also owns other power tool companies like Milwaukee, AEG. And a lot of those AEG tools, you'll find those in Europe. In the US, they get rebranded under license using the rigid name from Emerson. They also have some vacuum cleaners like Oric, Dirt Devil, and Hoover, Empire Levels, and Homelight. So quite an interesting portfolio of companies that Tektronix Industries owns. Notably today is Ryobi and their One World Technology. So on the flip side of this, we've got the Chamberlain Group. They're the ones that brought the lawsuit here. And by all accounts, they're the market leader when it comes to garage door openers. I think that's pretty easy to say. Their main brands are Chamberlain, their namesake. They also have LiftMaster, which is their line of openers that's intended for so-called professional installers. You've got Raynor, and then they've also manufactured a lot of the Craftsman devices over the years, under license, of course. Now, I know there's a few other competitors out there, such as Genie and Linear, and I believe some of them actually license some of the patents that Chamberlain owns for their products, but those are other competitors out there. But the Chamberlain Group has a significant market share on their own between Chamberlain, LiftMaster, and Craftsman openers. There's also Raynor. They've got the MyQ app as well. and they've got quite a deep patent portfolio. But for today's conversation, we've got 3 patents in question: the so-called 319 patent, the 275 patent, and the 966 patent. I've got the full patent numbers here on the screen if you want to look those up, but we'll start going through these patents here one by one. So the first patent here is what we'll call the 319 patent, or in essence, the wall control unit patent. And so what this patent is it's about a wall control unit for a movable barrier. In other words, a garage door. Operator sends a baseband signals over a wire communication to the head unit of a movable barrier operator to communicate the movable barrier to perform barrier operator functions. These are not my words. This is out of the patent description for the 319 patent. Bullet point number 2, the wall control unit has a wall control unit port for connection to the wire connection. A first switch sends a barrier command signal to the head unit, commanding the head unit to open or close a movable barrier. Again, a movable barrier is synonymous with garage door, but I suppose it could also be a gate to a private driveway or private lane. And a second switch commands the head unit to provide energization to a light source. In other language, digging through this patent, there's also language referring to a digital data bus. In other words, the wire cable that communicates between the garage door opener and your wall console. And there's a final bullet point here of an infrared detector causes a command signal to be sent to the head unit to control the illumination state of a light source. So what does the embodiment of the 319 patent look like in terms of their art? So we've got their pretty crudely drawn garage door. This has overhead springs, retorsion springs, and we can see on the wall on the right beside what's supposed to be a door, they've got a wall module that is wired with item number 62 going around to the unit, which is the digital data bus. And that 2-wire cable sends both the electricity to power the control unit, so the power such as things like a backlight or an infrared sensor, as you see, or motion sensor on the wall unit, and it receives commands to open or close the garage door unit and transmits them back to the head unit. I think we've all seen these before. In my opinion, this is very similar to also like a doorbell circuitry, where you've got the doorbell is powered by the wire, and the doorbell button opens or closes the circuit to activate your doorbell. But this was indeed deemed patentable, at least at the time of submission, for this invention. The second patent, or the 275 patent, known as, I'll refer to as a door status patent here. I've got the little schematic here. It's basically a logic patent about some schematics whereby a movable barrier operator has a wireless status condition data transmitter that wirelessly transmits status condition messages to one or more remote peripherals. And part the second, the latter can in turn use the status information to affect their own functionality and supported features. So in other words, you could figure out if the barrier is open or closed, and then activate some other device or take some other action based on that, the status of the door being communicated wirelessly. Again, a close cousin to the first patent that we talked about. And finally, our third patent we're going to talk about is a 966 patent, also known, or at least I'm going to refer to it as a battery backup patent. And in this case here, we've got a system that includes a rechargeable battery backup for a barrier movement operator. A barrier movement operator controls the movement of a movable barrier. The barrier movement operator has a head unit to command the movable barrier to perform movable barrier functions. Presumably that means open and close. The head unit is supplied power by a power source. A battery charging station is in electrical communication with at least one rechargeable battery and an electrical communication with the head unit to supply power to at least one rechargeable battery. It's emphasis here to note that this does not indicate where the battery charging station is located. Just says it's in communication with the electric lines, in other words, the mains, and the head unit or the garage door opener unit. Next bullet point, circuitry is electrically connected to the battery charging station to supply power from at least one rechargeable battery to the head unit. And the system also includes electrically powered equipment comprising an apparatus for receiving at least one rechargeable battery. So it's not just a battery charger, but it actually can receive it and hold it. And the electrically powered equipment is adapted to be powered by at least one rechargeable battery to perform a predetermined function. In this case, obviously, it would be to open the garage door in the event of a power loss. So what does the embodiment of this patent look like? Well, here's the patent art that was supplied with it. So I got a few annotations drawn here. So the first box you see there, number 60, is the wall control unit. And then we've got a battery charging station, which in their patent application shows it on the wall. And digging through their implication here on 86, they also indicate that these batteries might be interchangeable with other uses, and their suggestion, one of which is a chainsaw, indicating that their batteries involved here might have other uses besides opening and closing the garage door. I mean, in my opinion, I think obviously any battery could have many uses, because a battery could be used as a battery backup for a sump pump. It could be used to power a TV during a power outage. I mean, what are the many uses of a battery and charger combination? But again, this was patented, and this patent was granted. Whether it's novel or not, or how essential this is, interesting, but they're clearly patenting this in the context of a garage door. And there are some unique attributes of, needing to open the door when your power is out. And we'll keep the battery charged and communicate with the, well, I'll use their words, a movable barrier system. And so, in my opinion, I think Chamberlain got outflanked by TTI One World Ryobi's novel opener that actually has a battery backup that could be used in other tools. Because while Chamberlain has mentioned they could use their batteries with a chainsaw, to my knowledge, Chamberlain never once produced a chainsaw compatible with one of their garage door openers, which to me I think is an important point, but I'm not a federal judge and I wasn't a part of the jury. And they want to do everything they could to try to stop this from coming to market, or at least, in my opinion, probably trying to buy time so they could develop something comparable to what the Ryobi product is. Because when you look at these side by side at a Home Depot, to me, why would you buy anything else other than the Ryobi because of its expansion capabilities? Again, that's just my opinion, unless you're really partial to the other ones, but the Ryobi one to me is such a novel opening device. And so if we look at the litigation timeline, so the opener was actually launched on April 1st, 2016. And then a mere 71 days later, on June 10th, a suit was filed in the Northern District of Illinois. Now, it's interesting, based on my digging through the literature, it seems like the Chamberlain Group actually did acquire one of these Ryobi products and did go through it with a fine-tooth comb, trying to identify any possible patent infringements, at least based on the various exhibits and documents I've seen in the court case. That's what I believe they did. I could be wrong. And there's the case citation there on the screen for you as well, for those of you that are legal geeks that are interested in that. And digging through the docket on this, I found one sentence I thought was pretty interesting from document number 365. The accused controller products, in other words, Ryobi, are now being offered for sale nationwide. Sales of this garage door opener will damage CGI's hard-earned position in the marketplace and good reputation, and irreparably harm CGI, in other words, the Chamberlain Group Incorporated, in other ways. Unquote. I mean, I would say that's pretty obvious, that based on my sentiments of the Ryobi opener, that, yeah, I don't know if I'd buy another one besides it. Unless I really didn't like green, which I'm actually not partial to, so I'd rather see, a red one or some other color options available in the same way. But, it's not there. The only option right now is green, and that's what I bought And I'm not trying to defend my purchase here. I just honestly and objectively think it's a pretty novel product that they have to offer. I'm not trying to be a fanboy here, just for the record. So digging deeper through the timeline, another one of the docket entries indicates that in 2016, the U.S. sales revenue of the accused Ryobi opener totaled approximately $9.5 million. So I think that's some indication if these sell for about, I think it's about $250, $260 a pop. Do the math there. You can figure out how many, I'm guessing, that were sold. And since it only came out in April, we're not even talking a full year's worth of sales there. Now, I've got no background to be able to tell you if that's a large number or a small amount compared to what Chamberlain did in sales in the same period in 2016. I think that'd be an interesting anecdote to figure out. And then in on August 30th of 17, this did go to a trial by a federal jury in Illinois, and a verdict was reached on the 30th, and Ryobi or TTI or One World, I know I've been using these somewhat interchangeably here, was indeed found guilty of patent infringement, and the verdict here was based largely on the 275 patent and the 966 patent. And then following that, a motion was made for permanent injunction to block the import and sales of these units into the United States. So One World Technologies, or these Ryobi units, are not made in the U.S. They're imported, I believe, from China. And so they moved to actually create an exclusion ban so that these cannot be imported in the U.S. and that Customs and Border Patrol, in their securing and processing of incoming freight cargo, might intercept and block any possible shipments of these devices into the U.S. Again, that September 27th was the motion that they made for it. On May 23rd, that motion was granted. In the same time, TTI tried to appeal the judgment. That was denied. They had a couple reasons they were trying to overturn this. And the damages originally were lower, but then Chamberlain got attorney's fees and triple the original damages. And so they got the verdict pushed up to $11.4 million. So now that's actually greater than what Ryobi had originally sold in 2016 of $9.5 million. Now, obviously, between there and May 23rd of 18, presumably they obviously sold more of them. And that $9.5 million would be below what it is. Whether that's close to 11.4, again, I don't know. I didn't find that in the records. July 31st, 2018, there was a motion, and I thought this was actually really interesting in the intricacies, and I was surprised this detail was not actually suppressed or hidden, because one of the little nuances in some of these court cases is that either side can move to have certain motions or exhibits to be suppressed, so that not for public consumption, for things like trade secrets or other things that would be an unfair advantage. But one of the ones I was able to find openly on the docket entry was a motion for a $4 royalty per unit payable to Chamberlain was granted. My take on this is I believe that that's basically for the combination of infringement on the 275 and the 966 patent. Now, it's not clear exactly in terms of how retroactive that would be or exactly all the nuances of it, but that there was a granted motion to at least set up a royalty arrangement between the two firms. Now, whether or not Chamberlain thought that was a good idea, or they wanted to do it, or they got strong-armed by the court, I don't know. I can't tell you that. A little bit later, August 9th, TTI, One World Ryobi files a motion to the Federal Circuit Court of Appeals in Washington, D.C. For appeal, and that appeal was granted. So there's the motion to appeal. And then there's also a couple other interesting legal actions that went around this. The U.S. Patent and Trademark Office also had a couple of cases surrounding this, that the 319 patent in question was appealed by TTI on October 25th of 2016, and the Patent and Trademark Office actually largely invalidated most of the claims on it on October 25th of 16. However, Chamberlain is trying to appeal that, and the last I checked, that had not yet been fully resolved or reached a final verdict on the status of the 319 patent. The 275 patent was appealed by TTI on September 9th of 16. So again, this is now after they had launched the product. TTI was deemed unlikely to prevail on all challenges related to the 275 patent, and that was a finding by the Patent and Trademark Office. And the 966 patent was appealed by TTI in 2017, and all claims were upheld on October 3rd of 17. Those case citations are there in front of you on the screen for those that are legally inquisitive. And then December 14th, 2018, another court case, TTI actually took to court and filed suit against Customs and Border Protection in regards to the import ban against their units. And so one of the cornerstones here was that they came up with a new unit, Model 126, that does not have a backup battery. You can see that on the screen there, which to me was a notable selling point of these in the first place. It reduced the number of accessory ports down to 4. And it also had a wireless controller. If you've seen my video about the opener, you can see the wireless console. And if you look at the sketch that was included in the court case, which I've got here on the screen, that in blue, there's a text here for the head unit wireless receiver. And then you've got a wireless keypad. And the whole point of this was to avoid infringing the 319 patent and the other patents. And TTI was successful in appealing that to be able to successfully import what Ryobi is marketing as the 126 unit. Further appeals. So the Federal Court of Appeals case was then heard on July 9th of this year, 2019. The appeals case was 18-2103. And the verdict was reached on August 21st of 2019, so not that long ago. And the Federal Appeals Court determined that the 275 patent was basically invalid and voided that patent, which was definitely a blow to the Chamberlain Group. However, the 966 patent was deemed to be without anticipation. In other words, the court, based on my understanding, believed that TTI had a good faith belief that they were trying to avoid it. There was some language about the embodiments and the use of adjacent embodiments, whether it's fair to combine them or not fair to combine them. And the district court, or the appeals court, did not believe that, at least my take on it, and a lawyer could obviously correct me here, that TTI or Ryobi did not anticipate there would be an issue related to how they set up their charging. And I would imagine that since Ryobi also deals with other power tools that have cordless charging stations and radios that also have built-in battery chargers, that to me is essentially kind of like a garage door opener, but instead of opening a garage, it plays the radio or a Bluetooth feed from a phone and charges a power tool battery. I know Milwaukee's got a few of those chargers that do that, and I believe Ryobi's got some of the same. And then the Federal Appeals Court then remanded this case back to the district court to reconsider the damages and the fees with respect only to the 966 patent. In other words, the one about the battery backup. And then now if we fast forward a little bit to 2023 or 2025, somewhere in there, all the patents at stake here will become expired. And at that point, all this litigation will become moot. And so that's one of the things that leads me to believe that I think Chamberlain is just trying to at least buy time to get something here put together on the market. Obviously, TTI Ryobi has a whole portfolio of Milwaukee Ryobi AEG tools to be able to draw from to be able to create this opener and its accessories. I'm not convinced Chamberlain has that same deep pipeline for power tool innovation to be able to tap into. Maybe they do. They've got some other companies they could sign an agreement with, I'm sure. I would imagine that Shervon, as another power tool company, might be interested, or Stanley Black & Decker might be interested in jumping in with them to try to do some joint innovation. And with Craftsman being a Stanley Black & Decker brand now, that could really be interesting since Chamberlain has some Craftsman agreements as well for garage door openers. So going forward, what does this mean? I think there's a couple implications here. Number one, I'm anticipating there being appeals, and more appeals about the validity or how obvious are these patents. Are they really obvious? Are they not? And that's certainly subjective. I also think that the GDO 200 or 201, there was a couple redesigns where the 201 has the battery backup, but has the wireless keypad. That's the one that I've gotten in my other video. I'll put a link to that somewhere in this video, or at least below. And I think that's likely to return to store shelves soon. If you look on the Home Depot locator, in almost every zip code I've punched in different parts of the country, none of them have it in stock, but you can order it from the warehouse. And I think part of that is that Home Depot Central has easy control over what's the exact inventory sold. And they could easily, if ordered by a court, recollect the entire available inventory, either for destruction or for other purposes to be modified to become legal and compliant with various court orders. Based on the invalidation of the 319 patent, I would hope that the wired keypad is likely to return. If you look at the reviews of the 201 or the 200-201 unit, or actually all of these, there's quite a number of complaints on HomeDepot.com from people not liking the keypad not being illuminated at night or having that little green hue with the LEDs on. The AA battery that powers those controllers does not power an LED continuously, which is probably smart because it'd probably run out the AA battery pretty quickly. And as far as I can tell, the $4 per unit in royalty will probably continue. I mean, maybe they can get a modification to reduce that amount to something lower because of the resolution of some of the patent issues. I also envision an expansion of more Ryobi garage door opener accessories. I feel like they've kind of stagnated a bit, and they could easily add a few more to the lineup. And I think another interesting one is other brands that are sisters to Ryobi. What about an M18 opener that uses the M18 battery? Maybe has some different features. I'm not sure what that would be. I mean, I would probably have spent a few more bucks for a Milwaukee one with an M18 battery compared to the Ryobi. Yes, I like the color red more than green, but Milwaukee generally has higher end tools that Ryobi has, and I'm quite frankly probably not going to buy another Ryobi power tool. Maybe I will. I don't know. We'll see where the road goes on that. But if there's a Milwaukee M18 one, or maybe even a rigid one, that could maybe, some of this may clear the way for that. And I also expect that around that 2023, 2025 time, with some of these patents expiring, that other competitors are likely to roll out other garage door opener innovations, accessories, coming in a few years down the road. So if you've got an opener that's, still a few years, got a few years of life left in it, it might be an interesting market in a couple years to see what's all out there and what's available. And one other interesting thing here, that in digging through when I got my unit, and if you do a little bit of digging on Home Depot or Ryobi Canada, there was actually a carbon monoxide alarm that was at least developed and marketed as part number GDM 920. As far as I can tell, never actually came to market. So it's mentioned on the back of a number of boxes. As we'll give you a temperature indicator, a carbon monoxide status, and an alarm. And then with the battery backup in the front of the unit, that would provide some redundancy for this, I think. And I know I definitely would buy one of these and have left room on my unit to be able to install one of these so I could at least track that. If you've got vehicles in and out, I think that would be really useful. Now, I don't know what happened to it. I've privately messaged Ryobi and about this, and the person that's responded back through Facebook chats has indicated no knowledge of the product, which is weird because Ryobi.ca or Ryobi Tools or whatever their Canadian website is actually still has this listed on it, although you have to use a Google search to get to it. But maybe this will come back because I'd love to buy one of these. And that's why I believe that there might be more innovation and more. But if your Ryobi's in and it's all under litigation, that my guess is that to run one of these, you almost probably want it to be on a battery just for liability reasons as a backup. And unless you put the battery into the unit here. And number two, why are you going to roll out more products if the whole system is under patent litigation and potentially subject to import exclusion bans? So now the question is for me to turn this around and go, what do you think? What do you think is next in this saga? Is it resolved? Where is this going? I don't know. I'm hopeful that this will finally put to bed and that Ryobi, One World, Tektronix can pick up the pieces here and go forward, and that Ryobi and Chamberlain can work out an agreement on that 966 patent in regards to a royalty arrangement. And if it's a couple bucks per unit, I think that's more than worth it to both parties, that they both come out ahead. And that would be, to me, would be very reasonable. I don't speak for either firm, obviously, but I would love to see this get resolved so that more of these accessories can be brought out to market. As a consumer, I'd like to see more. And this is really is a revolutionary system. And so, I'm interested in this, and I'll keep following this. And if there's more updates, I'll throw together another video on that. And I'll also probably be throwing up a video if you want to listen to that appeals court hearing. I'll be throwing up the audio for that as well with this separately from this video. And you can listen to that if that's your fancy. And with that, have a great day. Put any comments below. Like, share, subscribe. Do all the usual things you do with your YouTube videos. And I'll see you back here for another video. Have a great day.